You're listening to NFT365, the first daily podcast on NFTs with your host, Fanzo, talking crypto, blockchain, Web3, non-fungible tokens, metaverse, and...
What the f*** is a non-fungible token?
We'll get to that.
What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of NFT365. I mean, the countdown is getting closer to this, bringing season one to a completion. And, we talk a lot about, for everyone that's been on the journey since November, right? We've gone through all the market highs and lows, minted projects of all shapes and sizes, really focusing on, unique utility, unique value, unique art. And, even, one of the projects we minted last couple of days, the unique idea of bringing things to life quickly and all the different variables that are out there. And I can tell you, our lineup of guests over the past couple of weeks, and I will just give you a little preview over the next couple of weeks, is a lot of the who's with who are building right now, who are surviving this bear market and I would argue thriving in the bear market. And I think there's a lot of great lessons there. And we have Gabe from Stoics that's going to join us today on the podcast, who's been doing some great things over the last, been a lot great things for a good while, but making a huge splash over these last 30 days or so. And we're going to get into that. Before we do so, we've, of course, got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Crypto Business Conference. We're getting closer to heading out to San Diego. It is October 9th to the 11th in beautiful San Diego. It'll be at the San Diego Convention Center. It is a one-track NFT conference, which is kind of a beautiful thing. You don't have to pick and choose. We all get to consume the same content and then get to network and build. I'll talk a little bit more about that podcast or about that event and what you guys can do to, even if you can't join us in beautiful San Diego, what we can make happen for you. But yeah, definitely listen to that at the end of the podcast. And, with that being said, I'm going to jump right in and bring in our guest, Gabe, who I guess we could just say, I want to call you like Gabe Stoics, which might be like, we're just going to rename the last name side. Gabe, who is the founder of multiple projects, which we'll get into that, but the Stoics kind of, I would say, made a splash multiple times in the NFT space, but in our alpha group circle, it was probably the most anticipated reveal of a collection that we've kind of jumped into in the last, probably since many of us jumped into Goblin Town originally. And excited to have you on the show, Gabe. Thanks so much for joining us. And tell the audience a little bit about you, and then we'll get to some of the questions we have.
Thank you, Fanzo. Super happy to be here. Bay Area artist. I do cubism. Been doing NFTs for about a year and a half. Came in luckily a few weeks before Beeple sold his piece for $69 million. So gotta seem like an OG on Clubhouse, even though I was maybe a month in before the huge influx of people came in. I was like, oh, I've been here. I know what I'm doing, even though was very, very new. Didn't know a ton about crypto getting in, and then just have jumped all in, and appreciate you talking about the Stoics. Yeah, it's been kind of a crazy start, and I think the cool thing about what we're doing is that it slowly unveils itself, versus I think sometimes it's the huge splash and then there's nowhere to go but down from there. Whereas I think we're kind of had the worst start you can have and then have only gone up from there.
Well, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that, the start, and even some of the creativity. We had, actually a good friend of yours, Sabbath, on, and I said, I feel like he's one of the most innovative artists and marketers of bringing some cool collaborations to life. He works on, just the way he does things. And I also would just give you credit on, I love the approach of kind of leaning on the community and letting the community make some decisions. I actually did a whole podcast episode last week on your decision to put it out there and say, hey, do we want reveal with metadata, or do we want just to reward the pure artist side? And I'm not sure if I want to thank you for that, because I believe I was speaking at an event, and before I got on stage, the 3 hours leading up was not prep at all for me speaking at an event. I literally was sitting with Allison on my team, and we were going through the entire collection of art and okay, this is what I have. And it was a heck of a lot of fun. But You met also, you sold out another collection. You were on Avalanche. You brought up, cubism. You brought up the fact that you kind of jumped in on Clubhouse, which many of us did, and the people side. From that year and a half, being in the space from then until Stoics, how has this space been for you as an artist and like as a collaborator? Was it kind of like an instant, fit for your, work style, your approach? How has that been, kind of leading up into the last couple of months and the things that you've dropped?
I mean, I'm not trying to be cocky, but it feels like the perfect, somehow NFTs are like the perfect, like, culmination of all my skill sets. And then when you threw on Clubhouse, where like, I'm not a very good writer, so I much prefer speaking. And so that was great. Then you have like, kind of, I mean, I was a community organizer the last 20 years, community political organizer. So I feel like networking and meeting people and then finding ways to kind of add value to their life so that they'll kind of add value to mine. I mean, like, Sabet's a great example. Like, he was so much ahead of the curve on me as far as marketing, as far as making it as an artist. And I just, like, we got along well, and then he was stuck with me, and we were talking at like 3-4 in the morning every night after like these 12-hour Clubhouse sessions. Like, there just aren't too many people that kind of have that drive and willingness to share, but everyone that did, I was like a sponge for it. And I used to be like a professional poker player. I ran big campaigns in California. So like the collaborations and all the stuff I'm doing with Stoics plus my art, it really does feel like this like culmination of all the skill sets kind of perfectly aligning into this thing that like I didn't know existed even in January of last year. Like, I learned, I think like February 10th or 12th when Micah Johnson sold something for 1.3 million. And I was like, baseball player selling art for 1.3 million? Like, I got to get in.
I love that. I remember, and I mean, I've started to talk about this on the podcast a lot, but, I knew about NFTs. I understood smart contracts, but I was the one that literally was in the Clubhouse room and tweeted out the screenshot of, and what my tweet was, look at these idiots bragging about their $500 monkey photos. Yeah, that I've eaten my crow on that tweet more times than I could say, but, we had Zeneca on the podcast. Zeneca being a previous poker player. I spent a couple of years as a full-time professional poker player as well, 2010, 2013. So we have that synergy. I actually wrote for all
same exact time too, roughly.
Oh, really? Wow. How about that? Yeah. Well, I mean, it was like we got the moneymaker kind of brought us into it, right? I think for many of us, which is funny because we talked about Zeneca with this a little bit too, because so many synergies and like those early days of online poker was like last year of NFTs, right? Like you could sneeze and mint out an NFT project last year, and those early days of poker playing. I mean, I would joke like I would be multi-tabling, and whatever table I played the least amount of time on, I would still cash, right? It was like it was such a fun days back in those times. And I think one of the things you also mentioned, right, like there was a time in this space that there were the crypto bros, the flippers, and they made part of this space a hell of a lot of fun. But I look at like people that are here now, they're looking at like, how do I survive this, right? And I think poker gives us a lot of advantages on, understanding the highs and lows of money, understanding like you have to roll with some like things that are, just some bad luck, even though you do everything right, right? Like, you can get your set cracked, pretty easily, even though you're making those decisions, right? I will say I wanted to kind of bring this a little bit full circle on that, jumping in and some of the things you said. I will just say the moment that I really was like your biggest fan was actually the Instagram video of you like on your back porch after the project sells out, and you like pop is it champagne, right? You think you popped the champagne, and it was like pure, like I just felt like pure happiness and joy and like relief on you, like and it was in that moment, like those are the people I want to back. Those are the people I want to go to bat for. And so talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned, it was a rough start with Stoics, right? Give us a little bit of that context, because I think for those that are listening, we have a lot of people. We talk about slow burn projects that take a long while to mint out. You had a project on Avalanche that you were mentioning that sold out in like 30 seconds. Stoics, as it started to, I would say as it caught steam, the floor price, was just going straight up. It felt like I would wake up and it was doubling. So you've had some of that success, but it wasn't an instant or an easy mint out or rollout. Give us a little bit of that context.
Yeah. So first day, super coordinated. I've talked to a couple other projects that have it. There's definitely some group out there that like is putting a ton of resources behind it. They had bots, they had fake OpenSea, like 10 or 12 fake OpenSea accounts, like ready to go. They had fake Twitter accounts. They had people that like had just done it the previous, but were just coming and fudding our Discord when it was like, my Discord is the happiest place in NFTs. It's like Stoics. It's like people that care about mental health, had the highs and lows. So I just knew that these weren't anybody that had been around this project or me for a year and a half, but it was very coordinated. We made a little mistake with OpenSea now. You can mint, you have to get royalties, you have to mint something first. And because the dev did it for free, they were able to get the keys to it and then mint out. They spun up like 5,000 wallets and minted out the collection while only letting like 21 people were able to mint before the bots got every single one. And so we had to there's an OpenSea account, like do not buy the Stoics by Gabe Weis. And it's just like, it's going to have like a middle finger of me on there or something like that. But so that happened. And then they were hitting us so hard the next day, continually hitting all of our servers, had to move it, had 3 backup servers. People had looked at the contract. They just weren't expecting the contract was fine minus this one little part that made it so that it was the worst. Which is what Solidity is. But yeah. I think, that day, I luckily have a lot of dev friends, and I called every single one of them like, hey, you're going to look at this, please, please, please. And they were all very kind about it. But I think we had 10 or 12 people that are all high-end devs make sure it's like, okay, we messed up once. I have got really incredible collectors. I think we're going to get past this, but it can't happen again. And we're getting attacked the next day, and we're supposed to mint at 7 a.m. Pacific time. And it took till 8:30 for us to know that there wasn't going to be any mess up. So it's on top of it already being a day late, then it's an hour and a half late. And, part of me is like, oh, we're done. And then part of me just knew I'd put in the legwork. I think we had 5,800 or 6,000 roughly NFTs that could have sold on our first mint day. So we were allowing holders to mint 2 for any one of my NFTs that they had. Plus, some of our collaborators also got kind of that preferential first day. But we minted 4,300 of a possible, I think, 5,800, which is to say, my collectors pretty much all max minted because I'd made them good ETH for a year and a half. Plus, most of them I've met in person, drawn a 101. 300 or 400 of them came from one-of-ones that I drew for people at events. That's how they got on the allow list. So I think the lesson for other artists is you have to have the relationships because you can't control everything in this. I had no control over the little mistake we had on the mint out, but what I had was a lot of people who knew I wasn't full of shit and wasn't going to let this be the thing that stopped us.
Well, and it's a lesson for everyone, right? Because, I worked in cybersecurity for a decade. And the thing I always said in the cybersecurity side of the house is it's not if, it's when. Right? And the beauty of it is most brands, most people ask for forgiveness and help without ever giving first. Right. And it's and most people are like, wait, you didn't care about me before? Screw off. I don't care. But if you've cared and you've given And I remember your tweets when that happened, that day, and following you, and you owned it and honest. And for anyone that wants to like know how that looks, look at all the replies, the support, the quote retweets, like celebrating you, saying, hey, stick with, I mean, like the amount of people that were coming to bat for you, right? And that is because of the work you put in. I think that is such a strong lesson, because when you do make the mistake and you've already put in the work, oftentimes you don't even have to defend yourself, right? Like the community, your collectors, your fans. And I will say, like in our circle on the, there was like this feeling of like a couple chats that were like, well, I hope this turns off some people so we can buy in more, right? Like there was like this little bit of like I want to get in with more of the Stoics. And I'll say, like, from the mint, even the secondary, I picked mine up off a secondary, my first one off a secondary. And then, Drew, our producer, has a bunch, Gregarious and Allison. We have a team of us that picked up a bunch as we were kind of going. But, you also mentioned, like your Discord and like that love and the calculated attacks. And I think it's important for everybody. Like, we need to stop retweeting and celebrating these, like, I have 1 ETH giveaway, retweet this, because what we treat and follow us, because people don't know, they're never giving that give out. They're going to just take that account, they're renaming it, and they're having 100,000 followers, and they're using that to attack, great projects, right? We're seeing the bought out campaigns. And I think, it's unfortunate that these, calculated attacks are happening. It happened yesterday on a collection that I was following that, I'm looked at the contract from everything on my side, looked pretty clean. And then of course there was, a couple of fake accounts and things that are going out there. But, talk to me a little bit about, so you had that, and you finally, push it out, you get that initial push, and then you have that like high of, hey, we minted out, and then it was, I felt like the NFT community was so eager for this reveal, and you made some really interesting decisions on the reveal, which I thought was genius. Cause I look at, like, we need to innovate on the normalities that have just become copycat for every project. Talk to me a little bit about, like, what was your thought process after you got the high of the mint out and some of the decisions you made, for, leading up to reveal day?
I think it's really hard to keep people's attention in this space. And then we had the merge and we didn't know what that was going to do. OpenSea had I think the lowest week in 2 years of volume was the week before our reveal. So I luckily, and I think it goes for this whole thing, I think I have the trust of my collectors and the Stoics, where all I'm asking for is I'm pretty good at this. I've been doing it for 1.5 years. I'm a strategist. This is my whole career. If you think I'm going to mess it up, you're crazy. But it's also trust me that I know we can get more volume, which ultimately helps all the collectors if I can release it kind of post merge and I don't have to deal with all of that. So first, we waited almost 13 days, I think, from mint out to reveal, which I know is about as long as I've heard. I think.
Oh, don't worry. We have Utes that is we're gonna go a month of that sitting in my bag and still not. So no, there's one right now that minted out before yours. And still has not given me a damn reveal. So
I think that's right, but I also think you see what they're doing in their runway, and I think they've gained the trust of their community, and they've had mess ups and had bad art when they started, and then developed their project, and now have a base that just trusts them inherently that they're not going to mess it up. And I think I've really taken a lot from them. Is a really good example of kind of what I'm trying to build, is delight people repeatedly, come up with innovations that kind of blow their mind, but don't reveal too much. I'm not a big roadmap guy. Yep. I kind of think the projects that have really focused so much on roadmap equal pump and dumps, because you achieve the thing and people think, but especially the ones with games at the end. It's if your game is not something I'll play in 5 years, maybe you shouldn't have hit that quickly on your roadmap. Wait 5 years to release your bad game. That's what it is. But I think for me, it's constantly thinking of new ways to innovate is what excites me. So I don't want to say what it is. In some ways, it's I've got some of the dopest friends in the community, in the NFT world. I got some of the best artists, musicians, collectors. I have people that are incredible devs. And my point is like, I come from community organizing, this like empowerment business.
Yep.
It's like if I can empower people but create structure around it, I think that's where the real power is. And then so like you mentioned it before, but the innovation I really wanted was like, I spent so long making all of this art. I tried to make it the best art project I've ever seen for a PFP. And I don't want like a few rarity sniper bot people to get all the cool ones in the first 2 minutes. And then it's like fun's over.
Yep.
But I knew it was also pushing the boundaries of what's happened in this space. So I was like, this is what I want to do, but like, and I think it's cool, but I kind of wanted to hear from the community in case they were just like, couldn't stand the idea, we would have pivoted. But my thought was, and it kind of exactly how it worked out, so many people were looking. We also did the QR code thing, which like happened in 4 or 5 minutes because people are real clever in this space. But in my head was like going to take like 5 or 6 hours of everyone like looking through the entire collection. Instead, we just have some crypto NFT wizards amongst their midst. So it happened quick, but yeah.
I love. We also have a lot of people that like. I mean, Easter egg. Like, we just love that whole like piece, right? And I will say, like, I unfortunately I got hit with the Ape DAO coin bot 3 days ago, and they took 5 of my NFTs out of my wallet, including my Stoic. But I'm in the process of trying to buy it back of the person that stole it and sold it to. But the one that I minted, or the one that I revealed, it had the map behind it, right? So it was a Portugal map. And I will just say, I blew that thing up on my iPad and zoomed in, and I, like, myself and the 2 people that were with me, we were literally like writing down some of like the names that were in there. And like we were, because like, I'm like, you know what? Like I went through a bunch of your pieces, and I love like the music side. Like I took a couple of screenshots of the music one, sent it to my music friend. I'm like, what song is this, or what is the composition behind there? So I'm like one of those, right? Like I'll give you like, I love that we're now looking at, it's not like bashing a PFP project, it's reinventing how amazing art can also show up as a PFP, right? Like, and I think you did that masterfully. And I also I loved the real reveal without the metadata. I loved the dialogue in the Discord of like, what were some of the things that people cared about, and like it was a lot of speculation, a lot of fun, and I think that's really kudos to you. I'm curious, you mentioned being a someone that's an building community around empowerment, as you've been doing that for many years. I think in the Web3 space, people struggle with that. I think there's an element of like, we talk about building trust, we talk about caring about each other, but like that idea of like empowerment, how would you say, like, or what are some of the things that people can think about in their building of their community, or even the relationships that they're building, to really empower people to feel like they're a part of something? Because I'll say, like, on reveal day, we were all celebrating as if it was our our project, and that's because of what you kind of build around that. Give us a little bit of like some ideas or things that people can think about when it comes to empowerment.
I think it's about speaking with integrity at all times, lifting people up at all times, so you're not like shilling, but you're really kind of seen as part of the community versus just like trying to use the community for your like liquidity exit. I think it's kind of setting up framework. So like, I don't know, I've spoken the same way for the 1.5 years I've been here, and the framework constantly, no matter what I'm doing, is like, I know for a fact, like I had 0 art connections prior to NFTs. Like,
wow,
the amount of stuff that I know now in a 1.5 years, the amount of connections I have is unbelievable. Like, it's hard to describe the level up I had. And that was all from Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, and showing up to every NFT event that I saw like on a calendar. And so my premise is just like, you can't say it's not possible, because I literally am living proof that you can start from practice. I mean, I had 50,000 Instagram followers, so 0 isn't nothing, but like I've had almost no sales from Instagram. So like, maybe it gave me a little street cred when I got onto Clubhouse at first, but like generally it wasn't like I'm talking to gallery owners or anybody. So like the empowerment comes, I think, from my own story, which is you can really start from not knowing very many people to like, if you find the right communities. And that's what I'm trying to do, an intentionally kind of curated community of the best people I can personally find in the NFT community, and then just like have them kind of share their knowledge. Cause I think that like the Zeneca 333 Club, there's like crypto package goods, CPG by Chris.
We had Mikey, the CEO, on the podcast. I'm a CPG holder as well, so big fan of that project.
To me, like that's the genius really of NFTs. Admit one, like it's like, are you actually getting alpha? Are you actually dealing with people who, if you put a question out, are going to give you a thoughtful response that might be consulting that would cost you $100,000, and instead it's just some quick little Discord comment that like blows your mind, you know? And I'm like, I want to, the next component and rollout of the Stoics is finding little subgroups. There's like the one with the smoke, for example. Like been talking to a lot of friends in the cannabis industry about turning that into a cannabis alpha group, where it's like the top people within NFT cannabis use that NFT to kind of form their alpha group, and kind of in a very CPG sort of way. And so to me, like the other value besides art or perks or whatever, I really think is just getting yourself in these groups of very kind of connected, smart people. So yeah, that's the next, as this like really takes shape. Right now I just wanted the first month to be art is beautiful, see what you like, kind of join the community you want. And then the next part is like me bringing kind of all my leader friends to kind of try to take some leadership roles, find the best people who have been active the first month and make sure they're empowered and they understand the vision. And then it kind of grows from there. At least
I mean, I love that. I mean, I think there's so many great points there. You know, I think surrounding yourself with just great people, right? And I think it's easy to say that. I think it takes a hell of a lot more work to do that, right? Showing up at the events, you know, being, you know, accessible, right? It's different between, you know, showing up and sitting in the corner with the three people you came with versus, you know, I mean, anyone that looks at anyone's feeds, right? Like I laugh that I'm like, I can see who's taking pictures and hanging out with people versus who just like lets you know that they're at the event, but you never like see them with anybody. You're like, okay, I you know, making those marks. Also something you said that I wanted to double down on, that, you know, I remember your Twitter space after, you know, or I think it was during the reveal or as the reveal was happening. You know, a lot of people are looking for alpha. A lot of people are looking for roadmaps, but what they're really looking for is like, give me a reason to continue to care, right? Like that's really what people, and you did that without putting yourself like with a date or giving alpha. And I think that was such an art where you're like, hey guys, there are things that are in there. And I mean, I think it was like 5 questions in a row that you got where people were trying to say something, but they were all asking the same thing, was like, you know, should I get an owl or is this important or this part? And you owned like, hold on, like, let's let the art develop. There are things that are out there. So like, I think that is such a tough balance for people, because we mentioned Utes, and I've given Frank a lot of credit because the man got attacked and he put his foot in his mouth and put some dates out there. And like, but then whenever he couldn't, you know, deliver on those, he kind of learned publicly, unfortunately, the lesson of like, hey, if like, we would rather you do it right than you to put out like another, you know, hey, we had some issues here. And I think now he's doing it really well. Like, I mean, anyone that would look at, I think we're going to reverse engineer and look back at what, you know, D Gods and Frank and the Utes team has done over the last month and realize it's beautiful to watch people like kind of learn what they can do or they can't do. I feel like you were a staple of that, and they were pressing you hard on that piece. And so I'm excited to see where this kind of goes from there. I do have a thought, like you mentioned collaborations and one of one. How are you handling that now? I'm sure, you know, the amount of people that want to collaborate and want to bring you in are out the door. You know, there's some, you know, some, especially one of one. You know, we had Brian Brinkman on the podcast, and, you know, that was one of his struggles, was like so many opportunities. Yet, like, how do I give them enough love, but also, you know, give enough people love? How are you looking at like kind of collaborations, you know, moving forward?
ROI, one, obviously. Anyone says otherwise, I think, is not being accurate. I think the other one is culture. Like, who am I lifting up? Who am I collaborating with? I think there needs to be a lot more focus on women of color in this space. I think I've collaborated kind of with some of them, probably the most women, like incredible artists in the space, like from my position. But I mean, that always has a big factor in kind of what am I doing? Is it someone who I think can help the NFT culture kind of get out of the just bro culture that exists? And so that's a big factor. But it's insane. I mean, the alpha, I think the coolest part ultimately of what I'm building here at the Stoics is that 37% of the collection, the quote unquote commons, are called caterpillars, and these can all change to 101s. And so like it won't be like just easy. It's going to be like you need to own an egg and one. And I mean, it'll be combos that help that always help the collection. So if we're looking at certain floor prices are low, then we're going to say it's the aliens plus this, like it's 100% up to us as a community. So I'm going to do it in the ways that, help the overarching Stoics the most. But a lot of these folks are going to get one of ones in the collection as I bring on new artists. Like the part of the magic of this is like projects are going to be able to come in. Maybe you have a new PFP and it's one I really love. You buy an egg plus a caterpillar, and now I make a derivative of it that actually goes into the collection versus a derivative on the outside. It's like there's an actual, maybe there's an NFT365 like NFT in the Stoics, and it works as kind of like, these are the people in it for the long haul. These are people that somehow just did 322 straight days of NFTs. Like those are the Stoics, in my opinion. So it's like, I want to celebrate the people that are here for the long haul, don't have that pump and dump mentality, and kind of know, I mean, you said from poker, it's like the highs and lows, like all you can do, you have no control over like 99% of this market. You can just control how you show up every day and how you react to some bad beats, whether it's crypto dumping or NFT floors or whatever it is. It's like, I mean, the big thing that it's still my profile, like pinned tweet on Twitter is just like, I choose happiness. Like, it's like a day where I could have just cried and like hung out in my closet, like moaning. It's just like, look, I just had 2 hours of people telling me they love me still. Like, it's like, if even if this doesn't happen, I've made so much money this last year from NFTs. I still have incredible connections and networks. Like, it's just like taking that little step back, and like being sad here serves zero purpose in my life. Like, I'm going to choose to be happy and then just try to figure out how the best way I can move forward.
I love that. I mean, I take great pride that I don't know if there's another podcast in this space that has had more female guests than male guests we have here on this podcast. And I take a shitload of pride on that. I'm a girl dad of 3 little girls, and like that, for me, a lot of that, oops, look at that. It's my 1:40 p.m., which is my Adderall alarm just went off. Gotta love ADHD, right?
Yeah.
I do my show. It went off 2 days ago when I was recording too. But I love that you brought up, like that part. We were sharing our love for Manushka pre-show, who's just, I think, one of the purest heart leaders that we have in this space. I love the collaboration and like that unique way of being like, how do I reward the diamond handers, right? Like, and it does connect back to our poker days. Like, we know that like anyone that was in it early and then wanted to make that a career if they were the people that didn't understand, like I remember people, hitting $1 million, they would win a tournament, and all of a sudden they were only buying in the 10K buy-ins, and they were only doing 100, 200, cash games, and I was like, and they were gone like within 6 months, 9 months, right? And I think like the beauty of this space, and like you look at collections like yours, and people I remember this, let's say earlier this year, people are coming to me and they're like, Brian, how the hell are you wrapping around the fact that you're buying an NFT every day and holding them? Like, how does that like work? And I was like, well, first of all, I kind of have like a hoarder mentality and things I like already. Like, I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I got Wheaties boxes behind me that are from 1980s and 1990s that I was like, they've never been worth anything, but I collect these damn Wheaties boxes with, with sports teams I like on it. And so like, weirdly enough, like when I tell people like the reason that the 365 buying an NFT every day made sense to me, it was already my natural case is like, I love the idea of supporting great people and like ride or die, right? Like, and I'm not saying I don't flip some and I don't see an exit out of some, but I do say like, if I look at my collection, I have a couple hundred that I minted August, September, October of last year that have literally just never been listed, that I own. And I've talked about them, here on the podcast. And I think of what you're building with Stoics, I think the creativity of the art. And I'm curious, I'm not an artist in that sense, although when this airs, I will have my first art drop before this and then. So I got brought on as a curator. Nifty Gateway put me on as one of the 50 curators, and I was one of the only like I would say traditional artists, but I've been heads down in AI art for about 3 months now, and I finally decided to launch it. It happened Friday, and I tell you, I speak in front of 20,000 people, not nervous. The anticipation for this art to be put out, my stomach literally, I didn't sleep about an hour and a half last night, and I still have 2 nights before the art comes out because like there is just something beautiful about like being able to tell the story and putting things out there. And I'll say like I'm inspired by the artists that have been showing up, that building community, because we were building an NFT project last August, and when we went to NFT NYC, Drew, we were like, do we drop a project or do we do a daily podcast? And many will say, and I'd be lying if I didn't look back and be like a couple times this year go, shit, I probably should have dropped that NFT project back in November, but we chose NFT project, and it was one simple reason. I just said, I don't think the Web3 audience that I've built trust me enough yet to come on this journey. And I was like, if I show up every damn day for 6 months or for a year, I mean, I don't have to say, trust me, I'm not going anywhere. I got a book of work that is proving it. And that's kind of that's kind of like how we brought it till today. But I will say, like, watching some great innovation, community building, and I think there's another through point here, with Sabit and his, like, I love the love component, right? And yours being happiness and being a stoic, like that is what we need more of in this space, more so than anything else. Like it's that bond around a common purpose that I think is so beautiful.
I think I couldn't agree more. I also, like, I had weird ideas about it because I'm not different than you. Like, there's part of me that's like, this project, if I had released it a year ago, would have made 4 or 5x by now.
Yep.
But in the very same token, most of those things have had their pump and then their dump now. So I had a weird theory early on, and like, people literally called me crazy, but I was like, I want to release it at the barest of bear market time.
Wow.
So that where it literally it looks like what I'm trying to have is the slow, like it's going to go like this, but I want it to go up, but like slow and steady as people unlock what this really means is where I want them in. Whereas if I tell them everything, or we launched it at the time where it's just so frothy, it like has that quick trajectory up, but like I can't think of almost any project that hasn't had this crush down. And if I easily can be wrong here, so just to be clear, this is all guesswork, but my hypothesis is like, let's drop this at the barest of bear market and then let it be one of the ones that makes it through that. And then once we get back to frothy times, then it goes bananas. And it's like people see that it kind of just had that trajectory. I could be wrong. It might
I
have,
love it.
to your point, like I might have been, like I should have maybe just cashed out last year at the height of my popularity and the height of popularity of NFTs. But I truly want to be here making art within NFTs for the rest of my life and career. So I just took the long view of like, if I have a project that doesn't look like a pump and dump that like slowly unlocks, like that will be the thing that makes it so that like I get to do this forever, which is the goal.
Amen. I mean, and I think that's the, I took the same approach in that it was like, you know what, I don't want to go anywhere else. And there's something beautiful about that feeling that it feels like Web3 was made for us, right? And for anyone that is listening this, then you haven't had that feeling yet, think about the different, like, this is where we need you, right? Like for those that are listening and haven't had that feeling, because there are so many roles and so many things in this space that we need people to come into and figure out, what does their expertise matter? How does their things kind of, play in this space? And, for those of us that have that feeling, I mean, there's nothing else I want to do for the rest of my life. Like I firmly believe that, I did 10 years in cybersecurity for the Department of Defense, random as all hell, right? Then became a professional speaker and was focused on like the harmony between technology and humanity. And like I talk about, I'm an ADHD and neurodiversity advocate, right? And like the mental health side has always been a big piece. I mean, I ran one of the largest clubs in Clubhouse on mental health. And so much of that, I was doing that because I cared and had no intentions of like, I didn't know there was a space that was going to be like, oh, we're going to pick all of those things and we're just going to put it into this neat bundle. So, I mean, Gabe, this has been a heck of a lot of fun, having the conversation. I will say, you mentioned, you did sell a collection on Avalanche. I'm curious, what was the difference between like, or what was like, how was that experience different? Were a lot of the same collectors that you had on ETH, the ones that bought on Avalanche? Give us a little bit of context on that.
Almost zero. I think like 3. I started my own Twitter account on it because it was very much an experiment. At NFT NYC, the recent one in June, I got approached by Avalanche. They're like, we'll handle all the marketing, all that. And that sounded great, except as it came down to it, I was like, no, this won't work. Like, I'm going to have to do my marketing thing. So I went hard on Avalanche Twitter for 3 weeks, like made an account that got like has over 4,000 followers now. And like, nice. It's vastly different. I mean, that was the most successful Avalanche NFT project in many months, nice. Like many months. One of these things also, like if I had known exactly what I was doing, I probably would have been like, no, like, oh, I'm going to come in during the barest of bear market when there hasn't been a real successful launch in forever on this whole cryptocurrency, like the whole cryptocurrency, not just like whatever. And I'm like, oh, I got this. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe not the smartest thing, but it worked out. I mean, it sold out instantly. It's had a good run. It's drawings I did in those community organizing meetings for about 15 years or 17 years. Like, so there's really old ones in there, and they're just black and white drawings for the most part, some color, but it's literally just the sketches that I kind of did in these meetings. So it's personal. It's very, very different than the Stoics. It's really not about utility. It's really about art first and an art collection. So kind of vastly different from the Stoics, but in some ways, like Stoics, I knew would have some success. I mean, I spent 1.5 years on it.
Yeah.
I have a team, like met everyone. I've talked to literally countless people about this project for so long. Whereas like I almost got more out of the Avalanche in the sense of like, you know what I can do always in this space is adapt. And like I made 125,000 in 30 seconds on a platform that that most people still on ETH don't know exist at all.
Yeah.
So like there's something that kind of scratched an itch. I think you get it from poker, like maybe when you all of a sudden like, oh, I can play Omaha high low, and these people really don't know what they're doing at all. Like okay, let me start. I'll adapt and start playing this new game instead of just Texas Hold'em because I can make crazy money here. Like, or it's just like adapting and finding new niches within the ecosystems. We talked earlier, you mentioned like how many different cryptocurrencies you brought an NFT for. I would say 99% of people probably know about Solana, Ethereum, and maybe Cardano, like NFT, like
Yep.
Tezos. Probably.
Yeah, Tezos, yeah, man, they probably might.
Tezos, yeah, but like, so you're talking like maybe they know about 4 different places. You told me what, 40?
28. We did 28. Well, actually, as of this recording, it'll be 31. But yeah, 31.
I mean, like that's just impressive. But like, you're doing the deep research that no one, like, very few people are doing.
Yeah, and I think it ties back a little bit to poker, right? Because there also is that idea of like, when OpenSea changed the data on what the collections looked at, to me that is like game set match, right? Because it's like if what's presented to the average person changes, we can look at that and roll with it, right? Decide how is that going to change people's buying or selling behaviors, right? How are people going to look at, because it's easy for us to talk about like Dune Analytics and Icy Tools and all these things that like the 1% of people are using, but we also have to like take a step back. And you mentioned like adaptability. I mean, I grew a really large team in the cybersecurity space, and everyone would come back. My team was very successful, and I got interviewed a bunch. I'm like, what was your key? And I was like, I interviewed for one skill set, the ability to roll with the punches. I was like, every one of my questions were like, I'm going to send you to Kuwait to teach a class. The laptops are going to get hung up in customs. How the hell are you going to teach my 5-day class? Because if you don't, I have a $500,000 fee that the government will charge me if you don't deliver. Go. And like that was, I mean, literally a real life scenario that my team that I would put into the play, and like those that can like think outside that box and willing to adapt and recognize like maybe we could rent laptops or whatever that may be. And that's what this space is, right? I think a lot of this space is presenting, there's definitely different opportunities, different ways to look at it. And I mean, I love, what you represent. I love this, entire message. I'll say, as we kind of pull this together, and I appreciate the time, the Stoics, give us a little bit of like, send us off a little bit like from a Stoics mindset. Like what does being a Stoic mean to you? And like, how can people kind of look at that and kind of embrace that kind of mindset as we move forward?
We touched on it a little bit before. For me, the biggest thing of Stoicism is that you can't control what you can't control, but what you can control is kind of your mindset around it, which is to say, like, the quicker when something bad happens, you can either sit there and really dwell on it or dwell on the past, or you can make kind of the most strategic decisions in that moment. And almost every single time, you'll make better decisions if you aren't like freaking out about what just happened. Like there's almost never a time where it's like, I'll make my best decision from a place of panic and terror and by being sad about what happened. So it's like, I think for me with Stoicism, for this space, for everything, is like, and you talk about being mental health advocate, I've just seen so many highs and lows where people are on like practically like NFT meth and are like, I'm an NFT god because I minted 20 Bored Apes, to like then the price goes down. It's like, I didn't sell at the top, I'm an idiot. Like the highs and lows are so strong. That was my experience with poker too. Yep. And that like, I just think that the long-term view is like everything within 10 years is going to be a digital asset. We probably won't call it an NFT. Probably if you know a ton of people within this and are really going out of the way to be helpful and create value for people, the chances that you won't do extremely well, it might take 10 years, but the chances you won't do extremely well seem very low to me. Like I have like a line that people say a lot that I tweeted once. It's like, if you're reading this, if you're reading this, you're early. If you're reading this in 3 years, you're still very early. Like, I just think like it's worth being stoic. It's worth taking a little bit of a longer view on this. And like, those are the kind of people I surround myself with. They're the people that are still showing up at the NFT events, still showing up on Twitter Spaces, still doing podcasts every day during bear markets, or, like, I think that type of long-term view is needed. And so, yeah, stoicism is about long-term views, and then not kind of letting the market dictate your happiness when it comes to a project. And so it's like, no matter what, I want people to be having fun and finding use here.
Oh, I love all of that, my friend. I can't wait to hang out in person at an upcoming event. We'll definitely have to hang for sure. And I take pride. I tell people, I spend all this time researching, the NFT projects, but I will put out there, I spend more time researching the guests that I've had on the podcast, because to me, it's aligning with the great people, right? And it's my brand and my, so much of what our whole team is building, but it's connecting with the great people. And I literally can go back, and maybe there might be one or two people that I interviewed since November that aren't fully 100% active right now in the space, or that won't go back. But of the almost 100 guests we've had, they're ones that I just love what we continue to build. And Gabe, I love that you joined us today. Congrats. I'm excited. I'm gonna get my Stoic back that got yanked out of my wallet, and we have an eye on another two that. Actually, I was tweeting with someone this morning. They're like, "You're gonna wait till after you do the interview, and then you're gonna pick out." I'm like, "That's kind of how this works." So
yeah. Why? That's the event. Why you should get some advantages for all the hard work you're putting in. So you got some alpha today. I don't know. I don't think I've shared the vision of some of the changing with the caterpillars yet that we're envisioning. So I do think you got some alpha. You're worth it.
Oh, I appreciate that, Gabe. And for all our listeners, he did mention, Gabe did mention events. Our sponsor is the Crypto Business Conference. And even if you can't go to Crypto Business Conference, they do have a digital package that you can get the online, content. But I will just say, for all those that are, kind of questioning if they should go to an event or they should attend, or if it's worth it, to me, it's a beautiful thing. If I didn't go to NFT NYC last November, there is no chance that this podcast even exists. If I didn't go to NFT NYC this year, very recently, there is a whole slew of guests and people that I wouldn't have been able to even get to know or build these relationships with. So definitely check out Crypto Business Conference happening October 9th to 11th, socialmediaexaminer.com/NFT365. And I think, Gabe, I think you left it on the right spot, right? I think we can't allow the market to dictate our happiness. And, there's a beautiful thing when you're diamond handing things. The floor price, it just is never calculated in what you care about, what your happiness is, or how your mental health is, because there are numerous projects for me that I've never checked the floor price in the sense of caring about where it's at, because, I know that, not only is it worth being a part of, but there's a bigger picture here. And, I will give a shout out, Drew. We are pre-show, and Drew, who helps me produce on the podcast, he mentioned that him and his girlfriend, they have, they just got the print put out, they put above their fireplace. And I just love, like, when you got to hear that, and like watching your, like it's such like a cool pride thing, right? Like we get to sell NFTs online. Yes, you can buy and sell them, but to me, like, the fact that your art will go above their fireplace, even if his girl doesn't like it at the moment, or isn't wanted a family picture up there. Like, that's what this is all about. Like, how cool is it that you're going to be part of their lives? Like,
I mean, I know we were trying to wrap up, but I just had the coolest thing. Like, my top collector, she, a woman who owns a gallery in Vietnam, but she buys a ton of my paintings. She from Instagram saw a Stoic, and she last night reached out, and she was literally like, "How much?" Like, she buys the paintings go for $40,000 to $60,000 when I sell them to her, just so you have an understanding. Wow. She was like, "How much is this?" Like, if it had been a painting, I probably would have gotten 40 to 60,000, and it was just like a rant, like not a rant, but it's like not even like a super rare, by any means, Stoic. It's just like one of the Stoics, and I was like, I tweeted about it last night, but I was practically in tears. I was like, we did the thing. We did the thing where we made the art that's actually beautiful for a PFP, where someone would have bought this as a painting if it was a painting, instead of like
I mean,
a
that's the
thing. And
magic
like
right
that
there.
was like this aha moment. Like I will say that last night, like you would have seen if you had seen what I got when I got that text. Like it was the smile was equivalent to the champagne bottle that morning. It was like this NFT she would have paid for, like if it was a painting, would have paid so much money for, and it just blew my mind. So yeah, just had to tell that story
No,
because
I
it's
mean,
so
congrats,
recent.
right? And you did it, right? And I think for anyone, like, let's celebrate more opportunities to like do that, right? And and I think it's a beautiful thing. I loved seeing a lot of the photos that you were at in real life event the other day, and a lot of our shared network was there, and like I was championing that, like I was retweeting it, and then people were messaging me like, "Are you here at the event?" I'm like, "No, I'm just happy seeing people that I appreciate that are happy with other people I appreciate," right? Like there's just something beautiful about that, and I don't think anyone can listen to this episode and think in a bear mindset, right? We might be in a bear market, but there is definitely no reason to have to be down and out, and there's ways to kind of find that happiness, embrace the stoicism. And Gabe, it's been a great pleasure. So thanks for you for coming on. Congrats for all the things, and yeah, I look forward to doing some more things together. So
Awesome.
yeah, and for all those that are listening, as always, until tomorrow, make it a great day, everybody. Cheers. And we're off. Oh, dude, thanks. That was